Coming up on our newscast, the nation's daily COVID-19 tally went down, but the number of severe cases remain high. Distancing rules will be further eased next week, and by this month, outdoor mask wearing may no longer be required. Seoul's defense chief emphasizes the military has missile capabilities to accurately and swiftly strike any targets in North Korea. This comes as Pyongyang could conduct an underground nuclear test. Talks between Ukraine and Russia are set to resume. Moscow claims 2 Ukrainian military helicopters made a rare strike across the border, hitting an oil tank facility in Belgorod. Hello, we'll be wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. South Korean authorities are further easing distancing rules next week and possibly scrapping most pandemic-related curbs later this month. Eateries and businesses can stay open until midnight, and private gatherings of up to 10 people will be allowed. Choi Min-jung starts us off.
South Korea on Friday reported 280,273 new COVID-19 cases. This is about 40,000 cases fewer than the day before and a drop of almost 60,000 cases compared to a week earlier. But there are still high numbers of severe cases, with the number of patients in critical condition remaining at more than 1,000 for almost a month. As of Friday, 1,299 patients are classed as being in severe condition, and there were 360 more deaths. Meanwhile, authorities have revealed new revisions to social distancing rules. Prime Minister Kim Boo-kyum announced that social gathering caps will be expanded to 10 people from the current 8. Business hours are also extended by an hour to midnight. This will apply to a range of venues, including restaurants, cafes, singing rooms, bars, and indoor sports facilities. There had been talks on completely scrapping business curfews, but Kim explained that the lifting of measures should be done gradually, given the uptick in severe cases and the rapid spread of stealth Omicron. The eased measures will apply for 2 weeks starting on Monday. Kim added that if the outbreak stays under control over the next 2 weeks, authorities will take more determined action.
We will make bold changes to restrictions if our medical system remains stable over the next 2 weeks, with fewer severe cases and deaths. We will promptly adjust our healthcare response in accordance to the latest virus situation.
If there are clear signs of a downward trend, authorities will consider the complete lifting of business hour limits, caps on private gatherings, and the restriction on large events. Mandatory mask wearing, however, seems likely to last the longest, as authorities say it is the basic method to prevent infections. However, pundits are expecting mask mandates for outdoors to be lifted after 2 weeks. Meanwhile, restrictions for fully vaccinated inbound travelers from all countries have been lifted starting Friday. All those who are fully jabbed can enter South Korea without needing to quarantine, regardless of where they departed from. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
More changes ahead as South Korea transitions into the endemic phase and possibly begin to treat COVID like the regular flu. Authorities announced that COVID testing centers will no longer provide rapid antigen tests from April 11th and only offer PCR tests to those at high risk. That means the main way to get tested will be self-test kits or going to a clinic or a hospital. Those who test positive will be advised to stay home but will no longer be monitored by the government. Officials also decided to stop paying compensation to families who've lost loved ones to the virus. Up until now, they have been getting about $8,200 for cremation, a step required before holding a funeral. 4 people were killed in a fighter jet accident on Friday in Gyeongsangnam-do province. At around 1:37 p.m., 2 Air Force KT-1 trainer jets crashed into a rice paddy in Sacheon after colliding in midair during training. The crash reportedly occurred just minutes before takeoff at a base nearby. 2 student pilots and 2 instructors were on board. The homegrown 2-seater jets have been used for training for 22 years now. The Air Force has launched a task force to investigate what led to the fatal incident. Both President Moon Jae-in and President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol expressed their condolences to the bereaved families. The UN unanimously approved a resolution on Friday denouncing human rights violations and crimes against humanity in North Korea that have been exacerbated by the pandemic due to lack of vaccines. This marks the 20th straight year of such measures being passed by the 47-member Human Rights Council. And Seoul did not participate in this year's consensus as well, mainly not to provoke the regime. A foreign ministry official described the move as part of the government's efforts to bring practical developments for the peninsula peace process, but adds it's willing to work with the international community to improve human rights in the north. Amid heightened tensions following the regime's ICBM launch, South Korea's defense minister sent a message of warning. This comes as Seoul and Washington believe Pyongyang is making preparations for a possible underground nuclear test. Bae-eun-ji has the full story.
South Korea's defense minister Seok on Friday issued a public warning to North Korea that Seoul has the capability to precisely strike the regime. Seoul made the comments on Friday at an event marking the reinforcement of the country's Army Missile Strategic Command, where he ordered troops to maintain a firm defense posture.
In particular, if North Korea shows obvious signs of a missile launch, we have the capability to accurately target its launch point, command, and support facilities.
This kind of targeting strategy involves a preemptive strike system called a kill chain. It also involves what's called the Korean Massive Punishment and Retaliation, or KMPR, aimed at launching attacks directly at the North Korean leadership. It's something that was introduced in the past when the Conservative Party was taking power in 2016. So it's very unusual for the government under the Moon administration to publicly mention it. The defense minister also said on Friday that South Korea will continue to develop various types of ballistic missiles with a longer range, higher accuracy, and more power to counter threats. Meanwhile, 38 North, a web journal run by a U.S.-based think tank, said Thursday local time that a commercial satellite image shows increased activity around the North's Seoul satellite launching station. It said this included the arrival of new materials to the launch pad and vehicles in the VIP area, but said it's unclear whether these activities are related to the overall improvement plan or are measures in preparation for a satellite launch in the near future. The regime's leader Kim Jong-un had earlier visited the site on March 11 and ordered an expansion as part of efforts to launch spy satellites, which uses the same technology to launch ICBMs. Also, on Thursday U.S. local time, CNN reported that Washington and its allies believe Pyongyang is beginning to make preparations for a possible underground nuclear test for the first time since 2017. Citing 5 unnamed U.S. officials, it reported that North Korea has recently resumed digging tunnels and construction activities at its underground nuclear test site. But the sources said it is not yet clear how soon the regime would be capable of testing a device at the site, as it depends on the pace of the activity. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's transition committee is drawing up a preliminary list of policy priorities for the new government. Likely to be included a tougher defense system and reassigning duties of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Affairs. Lee Kyung provides a glimpse of what to expect.
Amid increasing security threats from North Korea, President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's transition committee is reviewing a revival of South Korea's three-axis defense system. It's a scheme aimed at countering the North's missile threats and is made up of 3 elements. First, kill chain, a system that launches a preemptive strike upon detection of an imminent threat. Second, tracing and shooting down missiles heading for South Korea. Lastly, punishing and retaliating against North Korea in case of a strike. The current Moon Jae-in administration had virtually done away with these terms as it pursued its peace drive. But Yoon, during the election campaign, vowed to bring them back.
평화라고 하는 것은 확실한 억지력을 가져야만 평화가 유지되는 것이고 선제 타격 능력을 확보하고 그 의지를 보일 때만 전쟁을 예방할 수 있는 것이기 때문에
Yoon had also pledged to deploy additional units of the U.S. anti-missile system THAAD. Related discussions are underway.
It's too soon for us to confirm anything, but I hope you monitor developments at the Transition Committee. I can say promises are meant to be kept.
On government restructuring, Yoon has pledged to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, which some claim has fueled systematic gender discrimination. And the Transition Committee is reviewing several ways to carry out the plan without eliminating its essential functions.
The ministry's role is far more related to family. We heard the opinions of women's rights groups 2 times last week, and now we're going to hear from family groups.
One suggestion has been to reassign family affairs to the health ministry or set up a completely new agency with a new name. A rough picture can be expected as early as next Monday, when the committee will finalize its preliminary list of government agenda. Yoon, Arirang News.
National unity should be the utmost priority. That's coming from President-elect Yoon, who also pointed out a number of challenges South Korea faces and referred to them as a crisis to be dealt with as if the country is at war. Meanwhile, the transition team said it's too early to announce a decision on the next prime minister. Kim Ji-yeon brings the updates.
President-elect Yoon said it's imperative to identify who's gaining from the deepening divide in Korean society and that the incoming government should stop them for the sake of national unity. The remarks were made at a gathering of the Committee on National Unity on Friday. He said although there may be differences in one's political opinion and economic stakes, there must be a way for all of us to share common goals and direction in order to overcome the challenges the country currently faces. Yoon said a country cannot win it if its own people can't come together, and then referred to instances of World War II, the 1950 to 1953 Korean War, as well as the 1997 Asian financial crisis.
지금은 총으로 싸우는 전신은 아닙니다만은 지금의 이런 국제적인 그런 위기, 또 우리 국내적으로 정치, 경제, 사회 이런 위기들은 사실은 전시와 다를 바가 저는 없다고 생각합니다. 특히 이런 코로나 위기 같은 것은 정말 힘들게 사시는 분들한테는 이거는 전쟁과 다름이 없는 그런 큰 고통을 수반하는 그런 위기입니다.
As to whether the president-elect is strongly considering nominating former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo as his first prime minister, following Transition Committee Chairman An Cheol-soo bowing out of PM candidacy, Yoon's spokesperson remained tight-lipped. The president-elect is listening to various corners of society to ultimately make the decision, and it is almost time for the ultimate decision. A definite decision hasn't been made, but we won't make the country wait too long. Kim said Yoon will visit Jeju Island this weekend to attend a memorial ceremony for victims of the April 3rd incident that claimed up to 30,000 lives in 1948. Initially thought as a communist plot, then South Korean government held armed crackdowns against the islanders for protesting against the U.S. military-led rule following Japan's colonial occupation of Korea. Yoon had promised during his election campaign to do his best to properly compensate the victims' families if elected. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Despite several rounds of peace talks, Russia's offensive against Ukraine continues. Moscow is now concentrating attacks on the eastern region of Donbas. Our Han Sung-woo is standing by on the line with the latest. Sung-woo, first up, what's happening on the ground? I'm hearing a fire broke out at a fuel depot in a Russian border city.
That's right, Daniel. Belgorod's the name of the region, and its governor, Vyacheslav Gladkov, said 2 Ukrainian military helicopters struck a fuel depot there in what is Moscow's first accusation of a Ukrainian airstrike on Russian soil since the outbreak of the war in late February. Although not verified yet, a video of the alleged attack posted online shows what appears to be several missiles being fired from low altitude, followed by an explosion. The resulting blaze injured 2 workers, according to Gladkov, but the Russian oil firm that owns the fuel depot said in a separate statement that nobody was hurt in the fire. The Kremlin says Vladimir Putin has been informed of the event. Let me also add that head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, who visited a nuclear power plant in Ukraine this week, just said the war in Ukraine has provided the IAEA with unprecedented logistical challenges in wartime nuclear security.
And so we're also learning Russian troops have confiscated several tons of humanitarian aid headed to southern Ukraine. What can you tell us?
That's right, Daniel. According to Irina Vereshchuk, who is Ukraine's Minister of Reintegration of temporarily occupied territories, 14 tons of humanitarian aid, including food and medicine, bound for the city of Melitopol in southern Ukraine, were confiscated by Russian forces on Thursday, along with the buses carrying the supplies. Ukrainian officials are negotiating with Russia for the return of the buses, so they can also be used to evacuate people out of the city. CNN reports, though, that around 2,000 civilians from the besieged city of Mariupol are evacuating on buses to the Ukrainian government-held city of Zaporizhzhia. According to the Mariupol City Council on Telegram, the evacuation convoy left the coastal city of Berdyansk for Zaporizhzhia on 42 buses, escorted by the Red Cross and state emergency service vehicles.
Time is running out for the people of Mariupol. They are desperately in need of assistance, and they are desperately in need of leaving the city if they wish to do so. That is what we're hopeful to achieve today.
This follows Russia's prior announcement that it would reopen the evacuation corridor from Mariupol to Zaporizhzhia today at the request of France and Germany. The Ukrainian government earlier estimated that around 100,000 civilians are trapped inside the city, which has suffered weeks of bombardment. Meanwhile, in another video address to the Ukrainian people, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that although the situation in the south and in Donbass remains extremely difficult, Russia will pay in the end.
Also, in the Donbass, in Mariupol, in the Kharkiv direction, Russian troops are accumulating the potential for strikes, powerful strikes. We will defend ourselves. We will do everything we can to stop the occupiers and cleanse our land of their evil and senseless crimes.
He also said he had sacked 2 senior members of the National Security Service, referring to them as anti-hero traitors.
Now, despite a dark backdrop, peace talks are set to continue. Many are hoping they could produce some positive results.
Correct. Talks between Ukraine and Russia will resume on Friday online through video. Ukrainian negotiator David Arakamia said Thursday that they will focus on the peace framework Ukraine presented at the talks earlier this week in Istanbul, Turkey. Talks, Russia said, were, quote, constructive. The diplomatic stakes are higher now, though, with the Russian president having just signed a decree requiring certain countries to pay for Russian gas in rubles or see their supplies halted, a demand major Western European states instantly rejected, Germany even describing it as blackmail. The United States called it a sign of the dire straits Russia's economy is in.
This is a reflection of the fact that the sanctions, the export controls, the other economic measures, including the additional measures that we announced today, have had a significant, substantial, profound effect on the Russian economy.
That's all I have for now, Daniel. Back to you.
All right, thank you for those updates, Sung-woo. Shifting our focus back to South Korea now, food delivery services have been going strong here in the nation. Their business is thriving amid the pandemic. However, some voice concerns over rising fees. Yoon zooms in on this issue.
Food delivery services have accelerated in South Korea over the past few years. According to Statistics Korea on Friday, food delivery sales revenue in February saw a record high of around $65 million. But at the same time, customers are having to deal with higher delivery fees.
Until 6 months ago, I would pay 1,900 Korean won or around $1.5 delivery fee to order a sandwich. But now that I check the delivery fee again for the same store, it's gone up to 5,000 won or around $4. Delivery fees has risen across the board and many believe that they're just too high.
According to survey data released by think tank Seoul Institute on Monday, almost 80% of the respondents said they use a mobile app to order food delivery. The apps charge commission from the vendors for each order as well as for delivery, adding additional fees to the overall order. More than half of app users chose less than 2,000 won, or around $1.6 as being a reasonable delivery fee. But some have stopped using apps altogether.
The rise in delivery fees is stopping me from using delivery service apps. It costs like 5,000 won, which I think is too expensive.
Some store owners are also struggling with commission fees amid soaring delivery prices.
We offer additional perks or complimentary menu items for those customers who visit the store for takeout.
One delivery service industry insider who wanted to remain anonymous told us that the hike in delivery fees was inevitable due to an increase in demand and a lack of riders.
We're looking for ways to coexist with store owners and customers. The government also needs to talk about delivery fees while taking into consideration the delivery platforms, store owners and customers, and find ways to resolve the rider shortage issue.
Amid soaring delivery fees, some are seeking creative ways to save money. One startup company has developed a mobile app to help people who live close to each other order food from one restaurant all at once. This way, the delivery fee is shared. But one expert says he expects the industry to stabilize eventually.
As more delivery platforms are emerging, which is making the market more competitive, delivery fees and commissions are forecasted to fall and be stabilized in the long term.
He added, although the government had already said in February this year that it wanted more transparency from delivery apps, more information like commission fees should also be clearly stated before customers place their orders. 이래현, Arirang News.
Introduced around a decade ago, emoticons, emojis, or stickers have become a key part of how we communicate when messaging. South Korea now has a thriving emoticon industry, creating jobs and income for designers and programmers. Kim Bo-kyung sheds light on this phenomenon.
This picture does the job of several words. Emoticons, or emojis as they are known elsewhere, have become a necessity during our talks on Messenger programs.
Emoticons have been key to digital communication for over a decade. They deliver our emotions, nuances, and even what we want to say. But it is more than just that. Emoticons are creating jobs, intellectual property, and even loyal fans, having become a huge industry.
Ever since Korea's leading messaging app KakaoTalk introduced emoticons in 2011, the service and its related industry has grown rapidly. According to KakaoTalk's data released last year, 220 billion emoticons were sent in the first 10 years of the service, and more than 300,000 emoticons have been created. The sales revenue in those 10 years was around $580 million. But most importantly, these emoticon services have created jobs for more than 10,000 artists who are catching global users' eyes. According to the global matching platform Steepop, the number of Korean creator-made stickers being downloaded has increased by 27 times, from around 24,000 in 2018 to 648,000 in 2021.
I think the reason behind that is that because Korea has been a very heavily sticker-using country for the past over a decade, almost a decade now, and has enabled the creators to compete with one another, follow up with the fastly changing trends, and now they're capable of creating one of the most usable stickers in the world.
Stickers or emoticons are a form of intellectual property that can be turned into all kinds of merchandise. The monetization model has further diversified as messaging platforms began purchasing sticker licenses to have them featured within their application, and as brands began using them as part of their advertising tools. As emoticons become a new way to earn money, local governments are coming up with programs to support beginners. This center in Eunpyeonggu district lets trainees get to know the whole process of being an emoticon creator. The expert says, however, that more efforts should be made for emoticon designers.
Creative sectors such as being a YouTuber, a social media marketer, and an emoticon creator heavily depend on one's own capability, but there's no site to learn. Most of them learn from private institutions and YouTube. If the government provides more support, and if there's even a major at universities, the industry would grow faster.
An emoticon is no longer just an extra way to share feelings. It has now become a huge industry, showing Korean creators' design skills and ideas and creating jobs and income. 김보경, Arirang News.
The city of Seoul has recruited 100 seniors to tutor other Seoul citizens on how to use technology and help narrow the digital divide. Under the name Odina Supporters, meaning supporters everywhere, these tech-savvy elders will show others how to use devices like smartphones. The lessons are free and this year will be available to another 10,000 people. The program started in 2019 and has since helped thousands of seniors learn the basics like ways to connect to Wi-Fi, download apps, and send texts. At a ceremony to kick off this year's program, Mayor Seoul emphasized the importance of enhancing citizens' digital literacy, especially in the pandemic.
Clear skies and sunshine will take over this weekend. Warm spring-like conditions will dominate for the daytime with air quality standing in the normal to good category. But keep in mind that wide temperature gaps will follow as morning temperatures will stay in single figures. Dressing in layers will be recommended. Parts of the south will see light rain until tomorrow dawn. Inland regions of Jeollado Province and western Gyeongsang-do Province will see 5 millimeters of rainfall. Coastal regions will see gusty winds for tomorrow. The coastlines of Gyeongsang-namdo Province and the west coast will see strong winds gusting up to 9 to 16 meters per second. Please secure any items that could get blown away. Morning lows will range from 1 to 9 degrees Celsius nationwide. Seoul will start off at 3 degrees Celsius. Daytime highs will be 1 to 4 degrees higher than today. Seoul will get up to 13 degrees, Gwangju 16, Daegu and Gyeongju will be reaching 17 degrees. And sunny conditions will take over until the beginning of next week. Have a great weekend and here are the weather conditions around the world.
It's time to wrap things up. As always, thank you for staying with us.